Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Comic Corner, where we do news, reviews, and interviews. And today we have a very special interview for you all. We are welcoming back friends of the show, Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, rock star comic book writers. My dudes, how are you doing? Thank you so much for popping in. I know that we have a lot of stuff to talk about.
Hey, we're good, man. Always happy to be back with you on the Comic Corner. I feel like we've done this podcast a bunch of times, and it's always a joy. So great to see you, man. And
I feel like you're just being nice, but that really made me feel good. So thank you.
I'll let Jack say the nice stuff, because my mama taught me, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything.
Yeah. Colin's like, just start the interview. Go.
No. It's a pleasure to be here, my friend.
It's always such a pleasure to hang out with you guys. You guys know I've told you many times, and I have said it on the show at exhaustion at this point, but y'all are some of my favorite writers in the game right now. And before we get started on all this great stuff we got to talk about, I do want to bring up really quickly, we do have a little special celebration today because Mr. Jackson Lansing just had a birthday a couple days ago. So I want to start off the show. Happy birthday from the Comic Corner family and all of us nerds out there. I hope it was a fantastic one.
Very kind of you. Yeah, it was. It was great. I've been traveling a lot, so I spent it away from home, which was kind of a bummer. But had a few friends come out to New York, and we did like a week of theater and eating well, and just kind of had a little bit, like, not a vacation, but like a working vacation, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I got to go celebrate at Fan Expo Philly, which was righteous because, like, I've never been to Philly before. It was a great group of awesome creators. I was like plugged in next to like Stephanie Williams and Nick Draper-Ivey and Scott Snyder, and it was just like, well, let's just hang out, man. It was a great vibe. So really always a joy to get to see a new city and hang out with fans and celebrate your birthday in like crazy new places. So it was lovely. Thank you. I feel 1 year younger.
Well, that sounds like a perfect birthday to me, my friend. I haven't made my way out to Philly yet, but as a big fat boy myself, I need to go get me an official cheesesteak. Shout out our friends over at Listen 3000 Podcast. But back to you guys and all the great stuff you guys got going on. We have some very interesting things to talk about in regards to some MCU things that just popped up. But first, I want to just quickly glaze over one of my favorite projects from you guys, and that is Clayface One Bad Day, which has been getting a little buzz recently, which I absolutely love to see because, again, it's one of my favorite pieces of your guys' work. And James Gunn just recently tweeted out a picture from your guys' run. We know that there is a Clayface movie in the works. So, I mean, just kind of basic question, I guess, just like, how did it feel seeing that, you know, James Gunn, knowing there's a Clayface movie coming out, and then seeing, you know, even that they're aware of that issue and that run, just like, how did that feel? Colin, I'll throw it off to you first. Did you know, your mind just explode?
Notoriously enthusiastic Colin Kelly. Yeah, no, man, it's really cool. Like, you know, obviously I think we've been James Gunn fans for years. Like, before he ever clocked onto the superhero scene, like, Slither is gross and weird. Like, I think we got a lot of faith in his vision for the MC or for the DC, you know, side of the world. And knowing that he touched on our book helped kind of inform what their decisions are for Clayface is pretty sick. I think it's one of our very favorite things that we've written as well, primarily because it's just so personal. It's such a reaction to our time in Hollywood, our time in Los Angeles. You know, the poser syndrome that we all feel like we exist in as we kind of move forward into our chosen industries. And it's nice that he, acknowledged it. We would have liked him to say our names. But short of that, I think it's a good sign for where they're taking the Clayface movie, because, you know, he's a great character, especially when you take him beyond big man of mud, make gooey splashes, right? Like, keying into the tragedy of the character, which we did in spades. So hopefully James wants to follow our lead.
I'm gonna follow up on a couple of things that Colin just said, just to make sure that it doesn't sound like we're talking down on James Gunn. It's cool that he's not saying our name. I think it's relatively clear that they aren't taking cues from us, and that's why he's not. James Gunn has been really good at art cred since he took over DC. If he's adapting a book, he says it. For instance, they're very specifically adapting Supergirl over there right now, and are very specifically calling out Bill Bliss and calling out Tom and like keeping them involved. I think the fact that we've heard nothing about Clayface means that they are not adapting our work at all.
Just be clear, I do not think they're adapting our work at all. That's not what I meant. I just meant that a lot of people treat Clayface as a goof, and we treated him as a serious, tragic figure. And I imagine they are more interested in treating him as a serious, tragic figure.
I totally agree. Yeah, but I'll say like that's kind of I think that's the halvesies of him tweeting that stuff out, is that he specifically doesn't give art cred to Zermanico or us whenever he tweets that out. It's the second time he's tweeted out from our book, and he specifically doesn't call us out. And so I'm really trying to not get my hopes up that they're doing anything like what we're doing. I'm curious what Mike Flanagan is doing. I doubt it has anything to do with us. I imagine if it is inspired by anything, it's inspired by the animated series and inspired by that sort of like key kind of tragic version of Clayface that we also, took our stories from, that we took our cues from on that. And I imagine it's also probably very informed by James Tynan's work with the character on tech, since he was really, I think, he was prime position in terms of like taking that character and transforming him into a more pathos driven tragic character, which isn't to diminish what we did. I think that book is beautiful. It's my favorite thing we've done. I'm very proud of it, and it moved like hotcakes at Fan Expo Philly. I think in large part because people are becoming aware of the movie. But I think this is one of those places where if I get my hopes up that like Senpai noticed us, then I'll get real hurt when I learn that he didn't. And so it's probably best to just understand that he doesn't know about that book, or certainly is if he does know about that book, he is delibererately not crediting us. And so I think that that's a pretty good indicator that he is not adapting what we're doing. But we'll see. Here's the thing. The honest truth is, I love Mike Flanagan. That's actually what I'm psyched about here. Is I'm a huge Mike Flanagan fan. I just think when that man touches horror, it works. I can't wait for his Dark Tower. I can't wait for what they're doing on that side of things. I just think he's a sort of a once in a generation horror talent, and I guess talent in general. And so I really can't wait to see what he makes of Clayface. And I'm curious if he read us. I genuinely don't know. And I imagine we won't know until we see what the basic premise of that story is. And how much or how little they are sort of adapting.
I mean, I completely agree with everything you said. I mean, Midnight Mass absolutely ripped. So Mike Flanagan's going to kill it either way. But I will, and I also want to say too, I totally understand the, kind of reservation of not wanting to, get your hopes up too much. But I got to say, I would give you guys a little bit more credit. And I feel like even if it's not like a 1-to-1 adaptation, I feel like you guys did such a good job with, like Colin was saying, showing the man behind the goop that it's almost impossible that they're not going to, follow that kind of thread line even a little bit. And I'll also say too that every time Gunn tweets that, I always make sure to throw y'all's name under there just in case.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. Really, it is interesting that he does exclusively drop stuff from our book. I will say every time he's posted about Clayface, he does pull from our book. But I just think that's because Zermanico draws the best Clayface.
Yeah.
I would say his art is just amazing. It's hard not to.
If you Google sick ass images of Clayface, half the images will be from our book. So
literally. Cool ass goop monster.
I wanted to. But hey, James, Mike, if you're listening, bring us to set. We'd love to hang out with Clayface.
Yes,
I can't wait to see what they do.
We would love to talk about it. Come on, I think I can speak for all of us and say that we're open to talk anytime. But before we move on to another kind of movie aligned project, I was trying to spell Zermatico's name correctly on my post, so I just quickly like Googled Clayface One Bad Day creative team, and we've talked in some of our previous conversations about AI before, and the Google AI tells me that the One Bad Day story arc featuring Clayface was written by Brian Kelly and Steve Lanzing. So I don't know who those guys are, but it sounds like you guys got some doppelgangers out there. I thought that was really funny.
Brian and Steve.
Brian and Steve. Jeez, they just sound like weirdos. But
AI is so fucking good, man. AI is just so fucking
AI is great, and it's really good that we're offloading all of our cognitive behavior onto it. Yeah, it's a great idea. For more on that, read Batman Beyond Neo Year.
Yes,
where our feelings about AI become very clear.
Yeah, like I said, don't even get me started on this, guys, because we will be here for a very long time, a time that we do not have. But another piece of your guys' work that is kind of seeing a little bit of cinematic action these days, and another one of my favorites is Bucky Barnes, our good old boy Bucky. And we recently, everyone out there in the world probably knows the new Thunderbolts movie just dropped, which heavily features Bucky. And we get a little tease, a little surprise at the end. Spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen Thunderbolts, but Bucky debuts a new look featuring a very prominent red star on his shoulder that you guys are very familiar with because you guys pretty much created it. And that is Bucky's Revolution identity that you guys introduced in Sentinel of Liberty. Also want to shout out the amazing Carmen Carano for her wonderful design on the Revolution, which Bucky's design is loosely based off in the film. But I'll start off and say, when I saw that, I lost my shit. Me and my girlfriend were sitting there, and she's very aware of your guys' stuff from my yapping and ramblings. And as soon as that popped up, I was like, Revolution. The lady next to me looked at me like a fucking weirdo. But
no, dude,
and I just lost our F-bomb.
What's Bucky Barnes?
Yeah, who is the Revolution? But same kind of question of Clayface. I know you guys are relative pretty good fans of the MCU. So, yeah. I mean, how did that feel seeing even just a little piece of something you've introduced into the comics make it into the MCU? Jackson, will throw it off to you first.
Pretty insane, man. That one, I can give I can lower my expectations for Clayface all day long just because I don't know, we had no idea that was coming in Thunderbolts. I had to see that movie a few days late because I was in Montreal and I was working and I didn't have time to see it. And so normally I see that movie on my birthday. May 4th is my birthday. I get they tend to drop a Marvel movie on my birthday, so I always tend to see it. And I had to wait a few days, and that weekend my mom came out to see Montreal for a couple of days and spend my birthday with me, which was really lovely. And we just kind of walked around, had a great day. And then at the end of the day, we were like, hey, do you want to go? She was like, do you want to go see Thunderbolts? Do you want to see the new Marvel? I was like, absolutely, I do. Let's go see it. And I'd gotten an email from Carmen Carnero, our sister in Bucky, maybe 12 hours earlier, that was just like, guys, did you see the end credit sequence? And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I assume that means there's something from our stuff in there. But I was like, but that would be so insane. That would be so wild. And I would be surprised because our names aren't in the special thanks. And normally if they adapt anything from what you did at all, you're in the special thanks. And so I was like, okay, well, we're not in the special thanks. So they're not, it's not in the movie. And then I went, and then he walked on the screen, and like you, I went, Revolution! I was just like, oh, shit! And I'm next to my mom, which is incredible. We never get to see movies together. So the fact that the first time an MCU thing was adapted from our work was a big surprise for both of us at the end of this Thunderbolts movie was really lovely and really cool. And then putting two and two together and looking afterwards at what's happening here, it seems as if what's been happening here is that scene was shot 2 weeks ago, right? That scene was shot on the set of Avengers. Yeah, that was shot by the Russos on the set of Avengers Doomsday. And if that's shot by the Russos on the set of Avengers Doomsday, then I think maybe Bucky starts that movie in our costume. In which case, if that does happen, this is where I'm getting my hopes up. If that does happen, then I think we might get a special thanks in Avengers Doomsday, which would be the first time that the Hive Mind has gotten an MCU special thanks. And yes, as a genuine, like, a hard fan of these movies, and as somebody who back in the day did a lot of like, I did a pretty intense like analysis of those movies leading up to Avengers Endgame. I did a lot of tweet storms. I used to be very like invested in that side of the internet.
I need to find those tweets.
Yeah, sure. I think they might be gone, but I have a record. I'll send it to you when I can.
Yes, please.
Here, Jack predictions of what he watched all of them, and then basically called his shot on everything, and they're pretty good average. If
I was right about a lot.
I need to see this because I am a huge
in the Avengers movies. Yeah,
I will say as they kind of as Revolution popped up on screen, and we're like, he's there. The neat thing is obviously, shot on Avengers Doomsday set, and one of the things that we set up in Avengers World Strike, which was our Volume 1, was Thunderbolts, Thunderbolts World Strike was Bucky's relationship with Victor Von Doom, which then creates the backbone of our current Thunderbolts Doomstrike run. So there's not a lot of history of Bucky and Victor engaging with each other. Yeah. And in terms of texts, I mean, ours is right there. So will they draw on some of that stuff for the movies? Who the hell knows, right? Like, that'd be incredible. But in terms of where these characters have interacted, it is where our work lives. So, we'll see how the future pulls out. But the other thing is Marvel Rivals. One of the Bucky skins is also a Revolution. It's a take on the uniform, but it's awesome to have created something that is now reaching the zeitgeist. Now we just need Sharon Carter Destroyer. Give Sharon a skull mask. Let's go.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of the MCU as well, but I will say they completely dropped the ball with Sharon. So that, in my mind, that would be the best way to bring her back if they did destroy her. I mean,
we haven't seen her since she was like,
surprise,
I'm the power broker. So I'd be very happy to see them rejigger that character a little bit. We'll see. Colin's absolutely correct. Like, we've now done a few different encounters between Doom and Bucky over the years. And I think we've probably most of their encounters within continuity are in our books. So that would be a wild thing. I have no idea what they're going to do. Nobody knows. They don't tell us anything. I didn't know our suit was in the movie, then you get to see it.
And just to flag even more of the synergy, if people are watching Thunderbolts and think the Sentry is a cool character, but they want to know what's going on now, they could pick up Power Man Timeless to see a version of the Sentry and the Void as they rip each other apart across the stars. So it is interesting how much of our work right now does have MCU synergy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been playing in the sandbox. We talked about your last Thunderbolts series, how that's very, MCU synergized. And I also want to highlight what you just brought up, Colin, Power Man Timeless, which I got to say is like probably the coolest character I have ever seen in at least the last decade. I mean, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Blood of the Hulk, Sentry. I mean, it's just like, that's literally like a fever dream of a character, and I absolutely love it. And with the Thunderbolts, you guys are blowing my mind right now, because I obviously I do this stuff for a living. I write about this stuff, whatever. And I feel kind of silly right now because I didn't even consider the whole Doomsday aspect of all of this. And that leads us perfectly into Thunderbolts Doomstrike, which is currently unfolding right now and is continuing Bucky's arc as the Revolution. And I think a big reason I think that we see Bucky kind of donning this suit in the MCU is his journey in the MCU is very similar to the journey you guys have put him on all the way back from Sentinel of Liberty up until this point in Thunderbolts Doomstrike. Now, Jackson, I actually tweeted at you about this not too long ago, about this being the conclusion of Bucky's arc as the Revolution. So I wanted to ask if you could, without spoilers, because there's one issue left. Issue 4 just recently dropped. So obviously we don't want to get into spoilers, but can you kind of unpack a little bit about Bucky's journey as the Revolution? We've talked before, like coming into the Revolution, but since he has taken that mantle, what like that kind of character arc journey and where you hope. I'm trying to word this without it like getting into spoilers, but where would you hope that Bucky kind of lands at the end of this for fans, from a fan perspective?
Well, and I think just for what it's worth, the last issue comes out in 2 days. So,
this week,
Doomstrike's coming out quick. So by the time anybody hears this, I imagine the book will be out. So we can't spoil too much, but I don't want to spoil you, TJ. So like we'll be.
Don't worry about me, man.
All of this.
When we started the Revolution saga, as we call it, for lack of a better term, when we started this back in 22 maybe, we were in the process of figuring out what a Captain America book looked like that could really reshuffle the relationship between Bucky and Cap and really look at how to give Bucky his own story territory that isn't just baked on Winter Soldier. I think there was a lot, even runs I really loved were generally built on, here is this sin from Bucky's past that's coming back to haunt him. Here's this sin from Bucky's past that's coming back to haunt him. Here's this kid who is the new Winter Soldier, and now Bucky has to figure out how to be his, it's always about like Winter Soldier, Winter Soldier, Winter Soldier. And it was like this guy could never get out of his the shadow of his trauma. And until they did that, it felt like the character was just going to be running in a circle. And maybe that's one of the things that Colin and I are particularly interested in these characters, and one of the frustrations that can happen sometimes in Big Two comics is we're really interested in getting the characters out of their loops and putting the characters forward, creating new loops basically for those characters so that they can have at least the illusion of growth, because great stories are about character growth. And I think oftentimes the problem with superhero stories is they end up being built on plot, not on character growth. And that can be great plot. There are incredible plot books that seep into character, but they don't necessarily leave the characters changed. With Bucky, we wanted to leave him changed. And so we came in knowing we could only really change Steve so much. Steve was going to gain an awareness of the symbol and what it meant and what he meant. And what was going to change about Steve was he was going to learn to trust Bucky Barnes. Even when Bucky is going to do something that Steve doesn't agree with. Steve learns to trust his friend because his friend's plan will work. And to stand by him, right? But Bucky had to learn how to completely step out of the shadow of his trauma and start something new. So not only did he learn the origin of the Winter Soldier program, but he learned it went deeper than the Winter Soldier. And he learned that he had to step into that conspiracy, that outer circle that was encompassing not just him, but all of us. And by becoming part of it, tear it apart. That was Sentinel is as much a Bucky book as it is a Cap book. And it really was a way to take that character and push him forward over time. As we got to the end of that, and he put down the outer circle, and he, found his way towards, okay, he's still the Revolution, but what does that mean in a world where there is no outer circle to revolt against? What do you then use that power and interest and money and ability, all the stuff the tech, all the stuff you've gained from the outer circle? How do you then take that stuff and use it in the way that you, Bucky Barnes, want to use it? What is happening? Sorry, some audio, some like really powerful audio just started playing.
I would say that's not intense.
Yeah, hold on a second. This is very weird.
No worries.
Ghost.
Yeah, sorry. That was weird autoplay nonsense. My other computer, my work computer, just started playing a video, and I had to even though it's closed and shut down. You'll love to see it. Anyway, we got Bucky to this place where now he had all these resources. How was he going to use them? And so that was the premise of Thunderbolts World Strike. Okay, Bucky is now his own man. He's leading his own team. This isn't about a team of redemption, right? Which is sort of what the Thunderbolts always were. They were team of, it's guys like me who need redemption. It's no, this is now a team of guys like you, because you're the guys who stand outside of this world and are willing to stand up against the shit nobody else is willing to stand up against. So World Strike becomes, how do we kill the Red Skull? How do we make sure his money doesn't end up with all the other Nazis? How do we stop his infiltration of the U.S. government, the U.S. military industrial complex? And how do we make sure this guy doesn't resurrect himself again, right? That's issues 1 through 4 of Thunderbolts World Strike. And he puts together a team of spies and outsiders, and mostly guys who, as they say in the show or in the movie, can't fly and they can just punch and shoot, right? And how do you beat one of the biggest supervillains in the world and put him down permanently with just a bunch of guys who can punch and shoot? And that was World Strike. And now finally we're at Doomstrike. And what more could you do? What more could that character do? He did that, and we sort of ended with him being like, what's next, right? The pile of people's folios, what other supervillains can we take down? But he has inadvertently caused the rise, or certainly aided in the rise, of Doctor Doom to not just a supervillain, Doom's already a supervillain, into the fundamental leader of the entire world. All things bow to Doom. And Bucky feels responsible. Bucky has wielded all of that power and all that energy. And what has he done? He's made another mistake. Core Bucky Barnes stuff. How is he then going to take that mistake and all the lessons he's learned? And how is he going to drive that forward? How is he going to stand up against Doom when even Steve won't? When no one will? Well, how is Bucky going to do that? What kind of team does he put together? What kind of fight does he have to fight? What does he have to lose to finish that fight? That really felt like the last thing that Bucky needed to do as the Revolution. If he puts down the mantle after this, and I don't know that he does, genuinely. He might be Winter Soldier in New Avengers. I don't know. If he does, it'll be because he has completed the Revolution. You know what I mean? Whatever that means, and that's where the spoilers come in, he will have made sure that he has left behind a legacy of revolution, that he has toppled the systems of control that are unjust to the people around him, that he has stood by his ideals and his beliefs and the kind of man he is, and has done so with clarity of purpose and open eyes and the heroism taught to him by Steve Rogers. You know, I think if we have that, I think if that's there, then we'll have ended the story where it always needed to end.
In the end, revolution always wins. And and by the way, that was a quote from our good friend Colin Kelly over here from the first time we talked about Sentinel Liberty and Bucky Barnes. And I always remembered it because I always thought it was such not only a cool ass quote, but I think perfectly encapsulates what you guys were going for with Bucky and the Revolution. And I love it so much. I think that it is a perfect encapsulation of everything you guys have set up. And I gotta say too, I have been talking on this show. I have been a very big fan of the One World Under Doom event currently going on. And I will say I'm not reading every single tie-in, but your guys's Thunderbolts was the first one where I was like, okay, yeah, maybe Doom's not like, this isn't like a good thing. Because before I'm like, yo, everyone's got healthcare, everyone's got education. Like things seem pretty damn sweet in United Latveria. But honestly, your guys's book, I was like, ooh, okay, yeah, maybe this isn't.
Honestly, that was part of the difficulty and part of the fun as well, because it's like from every perspective, Doom's doing good work. Right.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, why are we mad at him again?
Right, exactly. And there's, obviously there's stuff going on behind the scenes, but getting to be effectively turning Bucky into the Cassandra, being like, look, I'm not lying here. The bad guy is a bad guy, despite everything that he's doing and all of his actions, kind of creates him a situation where he's constantly, he's just not believed, right? He's put on his back foot in a way that is, well, it's prime for Bucky. But yeah, I think it worked out. It's working out pretty well. I love how our book is really synergizing with the main line as they do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think, again, whether or not that Bucky's story in Doomsday is like, one-to-one translation, whether he even takes the actual name Revolution, I'm not sure. But again, I think the work you guys have done for the character of Bucky, unbiasedly, not even just because I'm a fan, but it's impossible for him to go back to what he was after what you guys have laid down. And it seems like, again, in my mind, with where the character is in the films, there, it's almost impossible for him not to go down a similar sort of path. So I just want to, first off, I just want to say congratulations, because it's just so exciting to see. I want to reiterate to everyone out there, go read Sentinel of Liberty and the Cold War event. It is, I'm not an expert, but it is my personal favorite Cap run that I have ever read. I just recently reread it, and it holds up just as good. And again, if you like Thunderbolts, you want to read that. Like, that will
and
eat your heart out.
If you were reading our Cap run, but then for some reason aren't reading our Thunderbolts run, since the issue just came out and everyone's so excited about it, certain Steve Rogers does make his reappearance.
Yes,
so
he does.
Coming in and finally being able to close that loop on these two men who haven't seen each other for so long, just for us personally as two best friends, was incredibly cathartic. So, you know, it really was a beautiful way to be able to put down the book, kind of close that story, and especially by the last pages that show and Bucky on what might be the potential for a little extra happiness. Because Lord knows that man needs it.
If anyone needs it, it's Bucky.
It's Bucky, yeah.
I got to say, too, I'm so jealous of everyone that is watching and listening to this in the future right now, because you guys have probably already read Doomstrike, but I, unfortunately, am stuck in the past. So I still have to wait a couple more days. But we have to move on. Oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, in the same way that, like, James Gunn tweeting out our cover was pretty rad. There was a lot of photos from set of all the actors looking at our issue at the World Strike.
Oh, I saw that. Shout out friend of the show, Brandon Davis over at Phase Hero. I saw he had your guys' Thunderbolts #1. I don't remember who of the cast it was with, but I was like, oh,
yeah,
I know those guys.
I was like, oh, right, you're reading the right work. Way to go, guys.
Exactly.
That was really cool. Yeah, he sent images of Sebastian Stan and Lewis and a Ghost. Like it was like a few of the people have he put it in their hands, which was very nice of him.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Again, shout out Brandon Davis. Go follow Phase Hero. Go subscribe to them. But one of the biggest things you guys are working on right now, and another thing I am obviously absolutely so excited for, is Giant Size X-Men. Big celebration of the X-Men franchise. You guys are freshly coming off of NYX. Last issue, number 10, dropped, I want to say 2 weeks ago, very recently. Yeah. And it was the culmination of everything you guys had set up in that book, featuring love, community, working together. What does mutantum mean in a post-Krakoa era? And I have to say, as a fan, someone following the series, I thought you guys wrapped it up so beautifully. I mean, it just, every theme that you guys had presented in the book, I felt you just captated so perfectly, but also provided the great superhero punchy fighty big stakes with Mojo. I mean, it was just a great send-off for the character, and we're gonna see Kamala continue that story in Giant Size. Before we get to Giant Size, what when you guys were finishing NYX, I know things had to be shifted around a little bit, but now that it is out into the world and onto Giant Size, do you guys feel like you were able to say everything you wanted to say within that series? Or is there some stuff that you wish you could have maybe harped on a little harder, or maybe, focused a little bit more in on?
In retrospect, I'm very happy with NYX. We were pretty public about the fact that we could have done 15, and we did 10. I think I'm happy with where 10 landed. I would have loved to play out. We sort of played out a plot in that book that was about a character called Local, who was a new mutant that we established, whose power was that he was sort of plugged into the various municipal systems of New York. The subway, the surveillance systems, the traffic lights, all that. And we thought that would be a really fun, we thought over time it might be really interesting to take that character down this kind of dark path where he ends up with Mojo, and he ends up being sort of key to Mojo's plot in terms of plugging Mojo into all of New York and creating Mojo City, which is really like the big finale of Arc 2. that the team, that NYX as a quote superhero team has to operate for the first time together at the end of issue 10, right? So we've gone from a book not about superheroes, it's about community building and community organizing and how you sustain language and culture and all that stuff. I think we did. I'm super happy with that. That was like exactly what we wanted that book to be, and it happened, and I'm really proud of it. Starting in issue 10, the idea was to pivot the book towards something that felt a little bit more like New X-Men, where suddenly these characters were now they have operated as a team. Now there are active mutants in the city, and now Local has been disintegrated into the city. He's lost his physical form as a result of everything that happened with Mojo, but his consciousness is still living in every subway train, in every brick wall, in every surveillance system, in every fabric of New York. So that in the last arc of NYX becomes quite literal. New York is an X-Man. New York is a mutant. And that as there are no safe places for mutants outside of these, like, the Alaska base and like the farm in the bayou, like that there's not a lot of places for mutants to go. We thought it'd be really interesting to play with a city that was almost a secret mutant haven, where if you knew, you knew, and if you didn't, you didn't. That Spider-Man wouldn't know that the city is a mutant, but if you are a mutant, you know that door, if you ask it to take you to, from downtown to midtown, it can. And like that was really exciting. I thought that was an interesting opportunity to start playing with some of the flavors of Krakoa without having to go all the way back to Krakoa. And it felt like an exciting opportunity. Ultimately, it's out of our hands. Like you only get to do what the company allows you to do, and you only get to do what they're going to keep on the shelves and what fans are going to support with sales. So, while it was initially the idea was to kind of do a two-pronged plan of Kamala Khan goes into her adventure in Giant Size and the rest of NYX lives without her for 6 issues or for 5 issues. Obviously that's not what happened. And we're going to return to those NYX characters for a little bit of a send-off in Hellfire Vigil. Colin and I wrote the first, I think, 6 pages of Hellfire Vigil, and you'll see some of our characters therein as Kamala kind of re-engages with the X-Men after her experience in Giant Size. But really all of our conversation about culture, about language, about history, about what it means to be a mutant, all of that is getting funneled right into Giant Size X-Men, where I think it is really shining. I think that's Giant Size X-Men is an issue to issue. It's not just a celebration or exploration. It is it's a journey for Kamala. It is a new moment for this character as she goes from a young woman who is really unsure of her identity as a mutant, who has learned that being a mutant costs you a lot of things, that it can cost you family, that it can cost you hope, that it can cost you friends, that it can cost you safety. And she's learning whether or not that's an identity that she really wants to take on, that if it's a thing that she wants to live in. And as we come in on her in Giant Size X-Men #1, and she is thrown back into the past of the X-Men and is sort of forced to live their history and try to hold together their history as it begins to fall apart just by the fact that she's there. She's going to get a much better understanding, not simply of mutant history, because if you want to read those books, go read those books. They're all incredible books. We're not trying to recap. Yeah, and she's read them.
Yeah, she's read those books too. She also loves those stories. Like, she knows how the X-Men assembled on that fateful day to go rescue the original team from the island of Krakoa. The fact that she's going to end up there is a living nightmare. Like, yes, she gets to see this team assemble for the first time, and that's incredible. But also, if she sneezes wrong, she might butterfly effect the X-Men into never existing.
Yeah, and so that, I think that struggle and that that sort of core intentionality from her, coupled with a large-scale exploration of her mutantum and of what mutantum means to Kamala, which incidentally needs to in some ways be an exploration of Kamala's mutant power, something that's been teased a lot and been understood a lot, but has not yet debuted in the books. I think those two things really felt like a great opportunity to close a lot of the conversations that we began at NYX in the grandest possible scale. So we just finished up the lettering on Giant Size Age of Apocalypse, and while admittedly Age of Apocalypse not my favorite X-Men event, I think there's some really cool stuff in it, but ultimately it's not really I know. I'm sorry. It's not my bag. It's not my bag. I'm so sorry. It's not my bag. But I love doing it. I gotta be honest. It's kind of turned me around. I think our Age of Apocalypse issue is pretty rad. I'm pretty proud of it. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe Age of Apocalypse was good actually.
Well, it's funny because it's like you flagged our Clayface up front, and one of the we tend to, we have a lot of modes obviously as writers, but something we always tend towards is either a story is like a pop punk screed anti-rebel yell, or it's sad. Right. And it's like, we love tragedies. Like, that is when you truly see where a human, where your passion, where your heroism comes to light. And our A of A issue is sad. I think that's one of the things that like really does, we come to on Age of Apocalypse. Like, yes, everyone's thinking about the sweet fucking collars and all that dope, Cyclops with his one eye and all that bitch and shit. But ultimately it's sad. It's a sad, tragic miniseries. And when you start thinking of it like that, it really comes to life. So it's real bitchin', man. Like the art on all of these is just going to be incredible. And folks should absolutely be checking it out.
Well, if you're not checking it out, then I don't know what you're tuning into this show for, because I have talked about NYX and your guys' Kamala. Me and our co-host AF, who is a big fan of Kamala, have loved the way that you have written her and presented her, and to learn that this is going to heavily deal with her new transition as a mutant is something that just makes me very happy. Because as opposed to, it seems like the general public, or probably just the loud minority of weirdos, but a lot of people had their opinions very strongly about Kamala becoming a mutant, and I was always a fan of that. I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was a really great place to take her character. But it also kind of felt like it was just like, okay, yeah, she's a mutant, and like that was it. So you guys dealing with it in NYX and then leading us into Giant Size X-Men as a Kamala Khan fan, that just makes me so very excited. And sticking with Kamala, we just kind of talked about how obviously this book centers around her making her way through the X-Men history, hitting pretty much all of the major main points. And Jackson, when talking about the book, you said that you guys are looking to take Kamala on a journey that she really deserves to go on, which I agree. But you continue to go on and say that she's going to be going in knowing the full extent of her mutant identity and the full extent of what it means to be an X-Man. And so I want to ask you, are you guys approaching this giant-sized, similar to the original giant-sized X-Men, in which they reintroduced the X-Men? But instead of reintroducing the X-Men, are you guys kind of approaching this as a reintroduction of Kamala Khan in a certain way?
That's a really great question. There was a draft that worked like that in a lot of ways. But ultimately, she is going to she is always going to be her own person, right? This is not a mind wipe. This is not, she's like dropping into her old body and then being like, and now I'm part of the narrative. She knows who she is. Is she treated like one of the X-Men? Well, she's showing up on the same day that everyone is introduced. So it's like getting swept up into that where a bunch of new X-Men let's meet each other. Yeah, in a lot of ways, she dovetails beautifully into that scenario. And I think some folks can see in our free comic book day issue, the general kind of how she fits into that, especially in a relationship with Cyclops. So in this particular story, we get to have our cake and eat it too, because we do get to introduce her brand new to the audience, while at the same time, she's still the Kamala Khan we know and love. So as much as she's able to meet them for the first time, it's like, she knows Kurt Wagner. Like, she's been buddy with Logan for years. He doesn't know her.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the kind of delicious little interactions that I think make this story so much more than it might read on the tin.
Yeah, I think it's also a really exciting opportunity, I think, it's not really just a reintroduction to the X-Men, though obviously it is. A lot of them are meeting her in just simply in time for the first time, as Colin puts it. But I think it's also a really great opportunity for the readership of the X-Line to get a look at Kamala Khan. I think this is one of those things that I think, just to like really go right at the I think the core concern a lot of people have, which is like, why is Kamala a mutant? She was already an Inhuman. She was already an Avenger. She was already a champion. She's a lot of things. Why does she have to be a mutant? What is that adding to her canon? Why isn't that duplicative, right? And we are not the writers who made her a mutant, right? I can't tell you why that happened. That is not up to us. What I can tell you is that when that happened, that came to us as writers who love this character very much. And we said, what can we do to try to give that as much meaning as possible for the next couple of years, right? As she steps into that role as a mutant, how can we make it feel vital and important and strong and useful? Why? And I think I think people ask us that question sometimes as if that's like a gotcha for us, or like, oh, have you not thought about the fact that like she's also an Inhuman and she's also like she doesn't need like another thing? And it's like, yeah, no, guaranteed.
Like, no, we haven't thought about that.
That's all we're thinking about. Like the point of this book is that Kamala herself on like page like 5 of this book goes, why am I a mutant? Like I already had all this stuff. Like, why do I need that? Like, that's the emphasis of this book, is wishing you weren't something you are, is trying to become something you're not. Like, what is all of that for someone like Kamala, who at 16, like what 16-year-old doesn't worry, am I what I should be? Should I be this thing? Should I not be this thing? Am I this? Am I not? Like, she's going through exactly that same very relatable, I think, thing that most people go through as they realize where they're going to sit inside the world. And X-Men isn't where she ended up. Isn't where she expected to end up. She really expected to be an Avenger. So if she's going to be an X-Man, what does that mean? How does she have to rethink her sense of heroism and her sense of community now that she's learned it from NYX? That's what this book is about. It is not a recap of X-Men events, right? I think you can look at something like Giant Size Dark Phoenix, Giant Size Age of Apocalypse, Giant Size House of M, and it's like, oh, got it. You're going to tell us the story again. Well, and like genuinely, like if you were going to just tell the story again, you wouldn't hire us. We're not very good at that. That's not what we're here to do. Like what you hire Colin and I because you want to take a character and you want to really deep dive on them inside of a big, crazy cosmic plot, because that we can do and that we feel comfortable with. I'm happy to juggle a million characters, but find that emotional core in one, right? That's Bucky on Thunderbolts. That's us here. Like that's in a lot of ways, Quill in our Guardians of the Galaxy run.
I'll say Guardians, Outsiders. I mean,
yeah, that's
us over in Batman Beyond. Yeah, you don't hire us for the easy layups. You hire us when you have to make a really hard basketball metaphor. I started that so confident.
Yeah, there was so much confidence. I appreciated it. I thought you were once again gonna surprise me with your incredible sports fandom, and it just didn't.
I was saying, I know Colin's such a big sports guy.
Yeah, big baseball nerd. Big baseball.
Yeah, I was saying, my pops is actually at the Dodgers game, like either right now or is going tonight. Speaking of sports,
good.
What taste? We'll pivot up. I'll turn this into a Dodgers podcast. Don't even get
I was saying, hey, let's meet up at the stadium, do a live show. But
yeah, continue.
I love, again, as a fan of Kamala, that is just all music to my ears, because I just feel like you said yourself, Jackson, like it's a journey that she deserves. I really believe that. And I'll also say, I mean, you guys would know more than me because you guys probably know these people, but G. Willow Wilson and Sana Ahmad, as long as I understand it, the original plan was to have her be a mutant, and that kind of got shuffled around. So, I think a lot of people just don't really know what they're talking about, to be honest.
Oh, and also, of course.
The internet is full of people who have all sorts of opinions. And one of the things that we have learned is that X-Men, because their metaphor is so broad, so many people can take ownership of it, which allows them to grab those characters that are most relevant and resonant with their personal beliefs, right? So it's like the X-Men fandom is spicy. Let's just put it like that. They are spicy because they all love it so much, and because they have such important interpretations of these characters that thus make them so personal. So we get it. We understand a lot of the hot opinions. We also have hot opinions, though, and
yeah,
where this,
I mean, I think
we really feel that needs to be told.
Yeah, I think like I'm not trying to be sort of preemptively defensive, right? I think it's just it's a important to me. It's an important distinction between how, in some ways, this book is marketed and how this book is designed. I think that there is a whenever you approach a thing and you're like, we're hitting its 50th anniversary, we're hitting its 30th anniversary, we're hitting its 20th anniversary, you get to a place where you're like, I can't wait to dive back into that world and tell a little story there, right? But this isn't that. This is one big story over 5 issues where you are going to get Kamala Khan's kind of personal apotheosis when it comes to mutantdom. That's what this book is. And it's going to use the language of Giant Size X-Men and Dark Phoenix and Age of Apocalypse and House of M to get you there. That's what that's going to do. But if you haven't read Age of Apocalypse, for instance, our Age of Apocalypse book is not going to teach you what the EMS is. It's not going to show you Age of Apocalypse Wolverine outside of like maybe a couple of panels. We're not going to take you through the entirety of the event. Our whole story really takes place on that last night before the world ends. And that's what we're going to dial in on. So you're going to know a lot more about Rogue, because Rogue is a character who really matters to our story. But there's a lot of characters that matter to Age of Apocalypse. And if you want to read Age of Apocalypse, go read Age of Apocalypse. It's all right there. You want to read Dark Phoenix, go read Dark Phoenix. Our Dark Phoenix starts well after Jean has already become a Phoenix and destroyed a planet, right? Like we're not spending any time in the Hellfire Club. We're going
as much as we wanted to. Man, we tried to get some nice black lingerie in that story, and ultimately
there just wasn't
room. All of these are 6 to 10 to 20 issue events, and we are admittedly have giant-sized pages. These issues are packed to the gills, but yeah, by the nature of what they are, we have to be selective to tell the story that isn't even the story we want to tell, but is the story that Kamala needs to go on.
Yeah.
I, again, absolutely love it. I think that it's the perfect direction. And also, too, like we talked about, people have very strong opinions. And I want to bring up something, Colin, that you spoke about on Twitter. I don't know when it was, recently, in the recent past. But basically, like, saying, hey, how about, like, not just assume, like, we're going to just, like, go and destroy everything, like, don't, like, come into the, just, like, assume that's what we're trying to do. And I just really, I really just found that not only, open and honest, but I think it is kind of a big issue right now in the comic book community. I feel like a lot of people, not even your guys' work specifically, but across the board, there's just so much you think what's going to go on, and just like immediately writing things off and kind of meeting projects with a kind of apprehension in the beginning of it. So
straight faith.
Yeah. So whether it applies to Giant Size X-Men or, any of your other works or just comics in general, as writers who, create these stories, how do you guys find yourself navigating those sort of things? And I don't necessarily just mean like, people being jerks and stuff in comments, but just, navigating telling these kind of new stories where, like you guys said, you like to take these deep dives into these characters. How do you guys approach that, knowing that, it is going to be met with the kind of what's on the face kind of skepticism, if you would?
Yeah.
I think that comes with the territory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that there is I appreciate being open and honest about it. I like talking about it. I'm glad you asked this question because I think a lot of creators go through it. It's a sort of necessary part of being part of the canon of these characters, is that people care very much about them and think about them a lot and really don't want to see you make the mistakes that they've seen made before.
That's well said. Yeah.
And so I understand their protectiveness and their I guess like preemptive defensiveness towards stories that might seem like they are disassembling things they love, right? I really do understand that. I understand why somebody looks at Power Man, for instance, and goes, why did we need anything else with Luke Cage? Luke Cage was fine. Luke Cage is a good character. And to that, my answer is Luke Cage doesn't have a book he's anchoring right now. That's why. Because if I sell a Luke Cage book, maybe I sell some copies, maybe I don't. But he's a hard character to go out there and make a lot of moves with. So why not try something else? Why not try something fun? Why not try making an old man Luke come from the future of another dimension where he's punched a god in the heart and has to roll into our universe and figure out what his purpose is, right? Is that going to last forever? Is that going to ruin Luke Cage? No. It's just going to be a great story, or at least we're going to try to make it a great story, and then we hope that you find it as you find it, right? The goal of any story is not to ruin what came before or to erase what came before. The Revolution doesn't undo the Winter Soldier. The Revolution allows for resurgence of the Winter Soldier when the Revolution is done. Get what I mean? Like, I really think that these stories need to shift and change. They need to turn and pivot. They need to open up new territory so that they can go back to old territory. You need to have, like, if Scott and Jean were just together forever and nothing ever happened, that would be boring. Yeah. These characters need to be pushed and pulled apart. These, like, Kamala, I go back to, like, something, you know, while we're talking about it, right? Like, something we get, I think, evident pushback on, and I understand the pushback, is Bilal, the Truth Seeker, who was Kamala's kind of villain in NYX in a few issues, and who is her cousin, who is a bit of a bigot against mutants and doesn't really like mutants, and is being pulled in by this sort of right-wing anti-mutant ideology that is turning him more and more into somebody who is obsessed with unmasking Miss Marvel. Now, that character feels like you anchor all that on that character, and it feels like that's a character who fundamentally needs to be related to Kamala. If Kamala's handling that, it either has to be her best friend or her love interest. That has to be like Bruno, which would feel like character assassination. That feels like that would not fit for Bruno's character at all. It would need to be her brother, which wouldn't feel like it would fit her brother at all. Or it would need to be somebody who like mattered to her, and that's why we introduced Bilal. It needs to be somebody who is part of her family, is around her family, can speak to her the way that the only thing that really matters to Kamala, which is family, can speak to her. Does that have unfortunate side effects of putting a Muslim man in a position of being a villain? Absolutely. Absolutely it does. And we had long conversations internally about whether or not it was appropriate to do that. Whether or not you can't, like, whether or not that's a thing you should do, whether or not it's a thing you can do, whether it's a thing we should do, right? We had a lot of conversations about that, and what we came back to over and over again is we're not making him a villain. He never bombs anyone. He never blows up anyone. He never hurts anyone. He fights Kamala. He specifically is angry at Kamala, and he's going after Kamala, and he is having a personal conflict with her, and he is using some trappings of Green Goblin and the Truth Seekers and all this kind of stuff, the Purifiers, to like his advantage in order to do that. But ultimately, the only thing he's actually concerned about is mutants and mutant bigotry. And I felt like, and I know that there are people of all stripes. There are people from every community who exhibit bigotry. There are people from every community who exhibit short-sightedness. And it didn't feel honest or correct or upstanding for us to be like, well, we can't do that. Like that would feel silly and like running from what was core about the character, at Problem. But we have to be aware of how we're producing that, how we're showcasing it, and I think we did the best we could, and I think there's always going to be places to sort of like increase on that. But that's a place where I invite fans to be skeptical. There's a reason to be skeptical. I understand why. We are also skeptical. But if you run away from stories because you are worried about them, if you run away from stories because they might be hot, then to me, as a writer, as a creator, there's a certain amount of cowardice in that. There's a certain amount of like, oh, well, I can't step too close to that circuit. And I think as long as you're doing so thoughtfully and you're doing so with understanding and you're doing so with ears open to the audience, right? I don't ignore what people say to me about this, right? As long as you are aware of that's where that's coming from and you don't just approach with full defensiveness, then that's the conversation that these stories are going to go on forever. I imagine I'll come back to our work 10 years from now and find a bunch of stuff that I wish we'd done differently. I think that's what work is. I think that's what stories are, is, they grow with you. So, I think I'm glad that people are into it. I do wish that I wish people would understand that we do approach this with love, and that editorial approaches it with love too. I think editorial gets a lot of crap, and I think a lot of the time they are also trying to make the best, the most clear, the most interesting, the most universal, the most heartwarming, the most heartbreaking stories they can. Like, everybody, there's no one in any of these rooms is looking at everybody and being like, well, we really got to destroy this thing, or, oh, I really wish we could turn up the...
Let's ruin Kamala Khan this year.
Really wish we could turn up the...
Are just
I really wish we could turn up the bad. Oh, I really wish we could make this book suck more. Like, of course no one's thinking like that.
I always kind of come back. I float back to, there's a scene in NYX, I think 3, where Sophie Cuckoo stands up to David Elaine and tells him what's the what. Oh, in issue 1. Right. Yeah. She stands up and she explains mutantum to David Elaine. Right. And it's, a lot of people were like, this little white girl standing up to a man of color, telling him about oppression. Like, who the fuck are these guys? And it's like, no, not who the fuck are these guys? Who the fuck does Sophie think she is? Right.
Exactly.
Characters can do reprehensible things. We cannot allow them to not make mistakes. Otherwise, they're not characters, they're tropes. But it sucks when your favorite makes a mistake or looks bad because you want them to succeed at all times. Unfortunately, it is partly our job to break your heart. And that makes people mad, but that's what the arc of good storytelling demands.
Well, ideally,
that's, I think the other thing there is just normally this is where I'll have a funny joke. I don't have a funny joke here. People love this stuff so much that we're not going to police their feelings. Right. Yeah. That's certainly not our job. We just ask that they trust us to care about this shit so much that we've made it our jobs. We fucking care. So you might not like what we do. That's valid, baby. You might not care for how we take a character. So we hear that.
And we will hear it.
We don't give a shit. Or know that we absolutely give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's literally your job. So it's, I don't know. I always thought it's silly to even entertain the idea. Like you said, someone walks into a book and is like, I'm going to ruin this. No, everyone's just trying to tell a great story. And, I think it especially rings true with the X-Men fandom. And, we were just talking about this with a friend of the show, Marewa Awudeli, who's writing Storm, in that it is a very double-edged sword in the sense of, like you said, you're not here to police a fan's feelings on a book. If they don't like it, they don't like it. But it's a double-edged sword in the sense of they hate this, but they're talking about it. It's causing discussion, whether they like it or not. So I find that's a very interesting kind of position that comic book writers often find themselves in. And I can imagine that's very tough to navigate. Again, the strong feelings, but at the end of the day, they have strong feelings because they care about the property. And being major fans yourself, I know you guys feel the same way. And I wish I could keep you guys here and we could talk about this all freaking day long, talk way more about X-Men. I got more questions for you guys, but you guys have so much going on, have so many great things to get out into the world. So I don't want to take up much more of your time, but I want to bring everyone's attention also to Star Trek Lore War. Live long and prosper, my dudes. These guys have been killing it over in the Star Trek realm for years now. They're these Star Trek dudes. And everyone needs to go check out Lore War, keep up with what's going on over there. And
thank you. Also, can I use that as a jumping off point just to say something really quick?
Please. Shout out Star Trek. Promote it.
Yeah. So look, as you say, we've been doing Star Trek for almost 6 years now. Love Star Trek. It's the best. Matters so much to us. We're so proud of it. The thing that I want to be really I want to be careful about saying as well. We are ending Star Trek at the end of Lore War. We've announced Star Trek Omega, which is like a really beautiful episode, sort of last issue of the book from Cantwell and us and every artist who ever worked on the line. Every artist who worked on the line is coming back and doing at least a page in the final issue. So we're bringing the entire crew together. It's a federation of creators, right? Who are coming in to do this thing. That's that just absolutely, like, I can't believe it's Heather Antos gets all the credit for finding a way to pull that off. I think we just said it like offhandedly, like, wouldn't this be fun?
Yeah, she was like, it would be, and you suck. And it's like, that sounds like an Antos problem to me.
And here, Heather is doing that. So it's been a joy. I'm so happy with it. And that's going to be the end of our time on Trek for now. But at San Diego Comic-Con,
wipe away my tears.
I know. At San Diego Comic-Con, we are going to announce something new. It is a new Star Trek project that fundamentally changes the way that we tell Star Trek stories, that is fundamentally different than everything else we've done. It is with an artist that is, I think, really going to blow people's hair back, who is doing every issue of the book. I've talked a lot about how I think Clayface is the best thing we've written. I think this is the best thing we've written now. I'm getting into it now, and I really just think it is a perfect distillation of a lot of the stuff that we love to write in comics, while also being an incredibly challenging take on Star Trek. I've been referring to it internally as like it's absolute Star Trek. It's ultimate Star Trek. It's Star Trek for people who don't read Star Trek.
I say HBO Star Trek.
Yeah, if you've read any of our books and you're like, man, I want to read Star Trek, but I don't care. I don't know who a Kirk and a Picard are, and I don't care about the licenses, and I don't care about the likenesses and the actors. Great, this book is for you. It doesn't have any of that. This book has Star Trek at its like purest, most fundamental, distilled form, taken to a really dark punk rock, interesting place. And I can't wait for people to see what's going on. You can tell I like want to pitch it, but I'm not going to.
Hell yeah!
Wait for San Diego Comic-Con.
I'll say whenever you're ready, man. Stuff. I'll be here with the recording ready. But
San Diego. It's gonna be great.
I'm sad that the your guys' 6-year run is coming to an end. I'm just glad to hear that you guys are not leaving the Trek universe, because again, you guys are the Trek guys at this point, and knowing that it's something that it will be accessible to non-Trekkies, I think is very, very exciting, and will be definitely something up my alley. I have read your guys' Trek, but we've talked before that Trek was not my forte before meeting you guys. You guys have brought me into the galaxy. And I mean, we've talked before too, y'all made an entire Star Trek universe just for fun before you even wrote Star Trek. So I can't think of two better guys that property can be in the hands of. But that's a perfect segue, Jackson. We already plugged Star Trek. I want to throw it off to you guys. Let everyone know Twitter's a hellscape at this point, so I'm not sure if y'all are even on there much anymore, but let the people know where they can find you. Any other maybe little teases, little nuggets you can drop us personally as a fan, maybe a little update on Principle of Necromancy, perhaps? Colin, we'll throw it off to you first. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, well, we've actually made this pretty easy lately. You can find our shared account at HiveMind Actual. At HiveMind Actual, all one word. We are on Insta, we're on Blue Sky, we're on X, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it. And that's kind of that's the main hub of our content right now. Because X is a disaster, and it's bad for your brain to be there. So we're really happy to kind of assembled all of our various sources of information. So just go to HiveMind Actual, and that's where you'll get those great details.
Perfect. There we go. HiveMind Actual, Jackson. Just HiveMind Actual. That's it.
Yeah, man. Hit us up at HiveMind Actual. I still have personal accounts, but I don't use them all that much. So you can feel free to do them as you like. I'm on Instagram at Found in the Wild. I'm on X at Jackson Lanzing. But really, HiveMind's where you're going to find the stuff that matters to you about what we're doing and how we're doing it. and you can always reach out through them to talk to us. And in the meantime, we'll be at shows here and there. We might be popping around San Diego Comic-Con a bit because of that announcement. We'll probably be around. I'm going to be at Dragon Con, so if you're down in like the South and you want to come check me out, that'll be my first Dragon Con, so we're excited about that. And then probably New York as well later on in the year. Colin is a new dad, so we are spending more time with the young kid.
Yeah, I have a new.
He reads all the comics.
I have a new writing partner, and he's a real screamer. I miss Jackson's dulcet tones.
So new editor over there.
Yeah,
exactly.
Really got big opinions.
Yeah. Well, that's so exciting, and not only exciting things going on in both y'all's personal life, but again, all the work you guys are putting out. I have obviously been a longtime fan of you guys, and it is just so great seeing y'all's progression as writers and taking these characters on their progressions as well. And I just can't be more excited for everything you guys have coming down the pipeline. So everyone watching and listening out there, just a reminder, go pick up Giant Size X-Men. That's going to be coming May 28th. Probably will be out by time you are watching and listening to this. So be sure you went and picked that up. Also, Thunderbolts Doomstrike, last issue, tying that all up, will probably be out by the time this was released. Star Trek Lore War, obviously. And I mean, just anything that you see Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing's name on, because they are fantastic. Again, I cannot thank you guys enough for sitting down with me again to talk about all this great stuff. It is always such a pleasure. For all of you guys out there, if you want to hear more from Jackson and Colin about some of their past work, a little deeper dive into NYX, you can go check out our library, find our previous interviews. We go deep dive. I think we've talked about pretty much all your projects at this point. So go check those out.
I think so. It's a good archive.
You guys are too kind to me. I don't know why you guys want to keep coming seeing me, because, it doesn't make sense to me, but I appreciate it. And also go check out Agents of Fandom across all of our socials. We have shows for basically anything that you're watching on TV. So if you're enjoying something, come over to the channel, come hang out in the live chat. It'll be a great time. But other than that, you will catch us every Thursday, talk about our favorite comics of the week. And until then, we will see you guys next time.